I'm going to call the meeting to order. Laura Lee, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Stu Boyd.
Here.
Denise Chapman.
Here.
Amy Doran.
Here.
Don Kirk.
Here.
Barbara Cruz.
Here.
Alexandra Lessem.
Here.
Nancy Rumfeld.
Here.
Thank you. For the information of those who are in attendance, 2 of our board members are meeting with us remotely, and the superintendent is also attending remotely. Nancy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And the flag is up there.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Denise, would you read the mission statement, please?
The Thompson School District will be a school that empowers, challenges, and inspires students, faculty, staff, parents, school leaders, and community members to learn, achieve, and excel.
Thank you. We'll move then to the adoption of the agenda. I'll accept a motion, then a second. We'll have some discussion if necessary, and then vote.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, a motion from Dawn and a second from Amy to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion before we vote? Hearing none, Laura Lee, will you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Amy Doran.
Aye.
Don Kirk.
Aye.
Barbara Cruz. You're on mute.
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem.
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries 7-0. We'll move then to agenda item 4.1, which is approval of the minutes from the March 27th, 2024 meeting. First, are there any changes to be noted in the minutes? If not, I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All right, a motion from Dawn and a second from Denise to approve the minutes of the meeting March 27th, 2024. Any discussion? All right, let's proceed to the vote. Laura Lee, will you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Amy Doran.
Aye.
Don Kirk.
Aye.
Barbara Cruz.
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem.
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 7-0. The minutes from our March 27th regular board meeting are approved. We also need to approve our minutes from the April 3rd study session. Are there any changes to be noted in that set of minutes? If not, I need a motion and then a second to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Did I receive a second?
I'll second.
All right. So Denise, did you make the motion? I wasn't sure where the voice came from. Dawn, that was you. All right. Motion from Dawn, second from Nancy to approve the minutes of our April 3rd, 2024 study session. Any discussion? Let's proceed to the vote. Laura Lee, please call the roll.
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Amy Doran.
Aye.
Don Kirk.
Aye.
Barbara Cruz.
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem.
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld.
Aye.
Again, the vote was 7-0 to approve the minutes of the April 3rd, 2024 study session. We'll move now to the next item on the agenda, which is public participation. We'll begin with the superintendent's report, and I believe that's being delivered by Dr. Sievers. Is that right?
Mr. Vice President, School Board. Bill Sievers, Chief Human Resources Officer. Our superintendent is online right now, so I have the opportunity to go over the superintendent report. So district-wide spring mailer coming soon. Every household in the Thompson School District will be receiving our spring residential mailer in the mailboxes. In addition to a letter from Barb Cruz, our board president, and Superintendent Schaefer, it also includes a recap of the impact of the 2018 bond initiative, an outline of the district's future capital needs, and a letter from Master Plan Committee Chairperson Chris Wright and Vice Chair Tom Pitts. This publication is a powerful tool to help ensure that every member of the Thompson community remains informed and stays connected as we work together to create a bright future for our students. Community feeder meetings. Starting next week, we will be hosting a series of community meetings that will specifically focus on the district's future capital needs, as well as the mill levy override and special levy process. Each of the forums will feature similar information, and community members are welcome to attend any of the sessions that they prefer. To learn more about the dates and times, please visit our website at tsd.org. The landing groundbreaking. After months of collaboration and planning, we are extremely pleased to announce that a special groundbreaking ceremony will be held on May 2nd, that's right, May 2nd, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the landing, a new shelter that will address the immediate needs of unaccompanied youth throughout our community. The new facility is a collaboration with several partners, including the Thompson School District, the Matthews House, Cooter School District, Thompson Education Foundation, Larimer County, and several local nonprofit organizations. The landing is scheduled to open this fall and will be managed on a daily basis by the Matthews House. Big shout out to Berthoud High FBLA team. Please join me in congratulating the Berthoud High School Future Business Leaders of America team after an amazing finish at the FBLA State Leadership Conference. Ben Sunheim won first place in computer program solving, and we are also proud to recognize the following top 10 winners. So Jack Houchin in computer games and simulation programming, Natalie Savage in Introduction to Information Technology, Brian Lawless and Maybe Rose Vanderbeek in Mobile Application Development, Ben Thormansgaard in Supply Management. Also, a special shout out goes to Annalie Quillen, who competed in agribusiness. Amazing job, Spartans. So if you can stand up so we can recognize you all. And you all are so famous, we'd like to take a picture with you, so if you can come up. Photo with the board, so if the board can come up and we'll take a photo. Mr. Hausman is telling me, direct all of you that way in the light.
Yeah, just right across there. Yeah, just beside this way. Stu, can you move this so it looks like see the face? There we go. All right. On three. 1, 2, 3. Good. Thanks.
One more round of applause, everybody. Okay, Betcher Scholarship winners. So if we can have the two seniors, Kennedy Lane and Egan Bowersfeld, just stand up so we can recognize really quick while I read this. Yeah, huge applause. Winners, they are winners. So finally, congratulations to Loveland High School seniors Kennedy Lane and Egan Bowersfeld, who were selected as 2024 Betcher Scholars. The Betcher Scholarship is one of the most competitive, I'll say that again, most competitive programs throughout our region. It is an extraordinary high honor, and we are so proud of each of them for this prestigious achievement. So once again, huge accomplishment, and a round of applause while these students come on up and take a picture with the board.
In the front.
All right. Just look right here for me. On three. 1, 2, 3. Thanks. Bright futures.
Bright futures right there, bright futures. Okay, at this time, we're going to do Top of Thompson and Community Champion. So first for classified, Eric Ramos, nominated by Renee Elenes. So is Renee here? Is Eric here? Come on over, Eric. So I will read it.
Awesome. So good to see you. Cool.
All right, Eric has a work ethic that can be seen and admired by many. He's a champion for the company and the biggest supporter for all his employees and students. The information I received regarding the years he has been part of the company, he has moved up to different titles. The title changes, but duties were just added due to Eric truly being outstanding. Let's say that, truly being outstanding. Acts of service to the company is shown. He also is an amazing tester, working hard to train his students to always remember who we are here for, the children. With that success comes, and he is truly your biggest supporter. I recently seen him go through a huge storm, and due to the way he carried himself, the way he handled his composure so professionally was truly the reason I stood and believed that if he can, I can too, weather any storm that comes my way, and this amazing company, Transportation, is a great department. So round of applause. Thank you, Eric. Okay, for licensed staff,
Congratulations.
Mike Robertson, music teacher at Centennial Elementary School, nominated by Gerald Robertson.
Yay.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see your faces. This is unconventional, but it really has mattered to the elementary music teachers in the district. Mike Robertson took our entire music collection from our elementary music series. He re-imaged it, he restored it, and transferred them to our district drive so that all our music teachers at the elementary level could have equitable access to the music. He took every grade level and transferred 25 CDs per grade level to the district drive. He also took all of our music from previous curriculums that was purchased, so it wasn't stealing music, and put them on the drive. Some of these included our Music Express magazines, our Music K-8 series. This has allowed all of the elementary music teachers in the district to share collectively on that drive. It has saved our district money, as well as made us have equitable access to the materials. He has done all of this while mentoring a new elementary music colleague in TSD at Truscott, along with supporting CSU student teachers and being the new musical artistic director for Loveland Choral Society.
Wow.
And he's a great husband.
That is way awesome. So for the community champion, we have Shazma Custom Apparel, Kevin and Zach Puckett, nominated by Shauna Lemons.
Hello, thank you for having us. My name is Shauna Lemons. I'm a music teacher in our district. Shout out for those resources. Thank you, Mike. I've used them twice. Thank you. And many more times to come, I'm sure. I've nominated SCASMA Custom Apparel for our Champion Award. High Plains has been working with SCASMA Custom Apparel through our music program, athletics, and for various K-8 events and occasions. They have made custom stickers, clothing, and merchandise to support our school and help our community as a whole show school spirit. As a new district school 8 years ago, it was imperative that we had beautiful new merchandise to show off who we were as Bison. This family-owned and operated business always does what's best for our school, including quality, cost, and timeliness, while being extremely professional. They even hand-deliver items when our staff, like me, get too busy to come down to Longmont and pick them up. Talk about going the extra mile. We are so lucky to get to work with them for the 8th year in a row, and we are excited to see what the future holds with SCASMA's continual support. Congratulations, SCASMA. Thank you.
It's always a great way to celebrate employees and people who give back to the Thompson School District, so that's a wonderful event that we have. At this time, I'd like to introduce a new hire. Oh, picture. So if everybody can come back, we need to do a picture. Eric, you can't leave.
Yeah,
Picture.
almost there.
Nice try.
Almost done.
As soon as you heard picture, you were running.
We're gonna get.
This way, about 3 feet. There we go. Okay. See everyone? All right. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Good. Thanks.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to introduce a new hire, our new recommended assistant principal that you'll be voting later today. We're excited to recommend Ryan Barron as the new assistant principal at Lucille Irwin Middle School. Yep, you will stand. So following his graduation from Berthoud High School, how great is that to do the intro
Yeah.
at Berthoud High School? Things work out for a reason, huh? Ryan pursued his bachelor's degree in math education from Chadron State College in Nebraska. During his time at Chadron State, Ryan became a certified tutor and tutored all levels of college math. He also served as a U.S. Soccer Federation referee, where he instructed new referees and officiated games. Mr. Barron joined Thompson School District in 2013 as a math teacher at Mountain View High School. He has spent the past 11 years teaching 9th through 12th grade general math, honors, and AP Math. He has also assisted with professional development, test preparation, and curriculum implementation. Ryan also has experience with creating grade and attendance reports, analyzing data, and planning interventions to improve student learning. Mr. Barron also served as student council advisor for 9 years and was the Certified Staff of the Year in 2021-2022. Ryan was also selected to participate in the TSD Aspiring Leaders Program in 2003. He gained valuable insights into the aspects of leadership, decision-making, growth mindset, communication, and professional development for educators. Hence, he went through the program, and now
There you go.
Ryan also received his master's degree in education administration from Chadron State during this time. Ryan's ability to build relationships, connect with a diverse group of people, and build culture will help him transition into the assistant principal role. Mr. Barron has come full circle in the Thompson School District, first as a student, then as an educator, and now as a leader in TSD. So we'd like to introduce Ryan Barron, and he has a 5-minute speech for us.
I thought I got 10, so let me get this quick. Thank you so much. Good evening, Thompson Board of Education. Thank you, Dr. Sievers, for that wonderful introduction and all those cool things you said about me. I have to say thank you to I have a very supportive family who's believed in me. I'm thankful for the amazing staff and mentorship and administration that I've had at Mountain View High School for these last 11 years. So they've really helped me get to where I am today. And of course, Dr. Sieber's session on that Wednesday night last spring probably definitely pushed me over the goalposts. So that was definitely my ticket. I'm super grateful to be here. I am excited to work with the staff. I've heard great things at Lucille Irwin Middle School. Very excited to be a Wildcat and work with Dr. Gillespie and Mrs. Stringer.
Congratulations.
All right, at this time, I'd like to introduce Gordon Boschman for Berthoud High School's presentation.
All right, good evening. Again, I'm Gordon Boschman, the building principal here at Berthoud High. I'm in my 5th year here at Berthoud, and I've lived in the Thompson School District for the past 22 years. And 2 of my children have graduated from TSD high schools. I'm thrilled to offer you a brief spring update for our high school. Every year, the Colorado Department of Education requires school districts in each school to do a unified improvement plan to identify 2 or 3 major improvement strategies. For most schools, unified improvement plans are designed to reduce negative trends. For BHS, our unified improvement plan is focused on continuing to improve some recent positive trends. The improvement in our graduation rate. In 2023, our graduation rate was at 95.3, up from 92.5 in 2002 and 90% in 2021. But even with a 95% graduation rate, that leaves 9 students who didn't meet graduation requirements and were not able to cross the stage with their peers. So this means there's still work to be done to get to 100% graduation rate. Berthoud High School is typically at or near the top of the graduation rate for our district. Another area was to improve Berthoud High School's daily attendance rate. Our daily attendance rates at Berthoud High School have increased slightly over the past 3 years from 91% to 93%, and Berthoud typically has the highest, again, attendance rates among secondary schools. We have 3 areas of instructional focus this year, and we focus on 3 high-impact strategies that we expect our teachers to be utilizing every day. One of those is called Threshold, where we expect our teachers to meet and greet students at the threshold of the classroom in an effort to connect with each student and welcome them into their learning environment. The second expectation was posting learning objectives and success criteria in each classroom. This practice clearly shows students what they will be learning or focusing on during class time and how students will be demonstrating that new knowledge or learning. And then the last thing that we focused on this year was a focused lesson closure, using an exit ticket or some other formative assessment to gather information on students' new knowledge and demonstration of that knowledge from the day's lesson or learning activity. We believe that those high-impact strategies will have a long-term impact for our students. Related to enrollment numbers and planning for the next school year here at Berthoud, over the last 5 years, our enrollment has gone up probably about 15 to 20 students every year, from 647 in 2021, and next year it's projected to be at 721 students. With a small but steady growth in enrollment, this allows us to consider some changes in our course offerings, and here are some of the changes or improvements we are planning for next school year. We plan to return our industrial technology construction position to a full-time position. We had a half-time position for the last 2 years, and depending on the candidate qualifications, we are planning to offer some additional technology or STEM course offerings beyond our construction 1 and 2 classes. And due to increased student interest and request, we will be offering 2 sections of Project Lead the Way intro engineering class next year. Adding 2 courses We will also be adding 2 new courses that we're planning for next year, which will include Unified Music class and Unified Physical Education class. These unified courses will include students from our intensive needs program matched up with peer buddies. We anticipate these 2 courses will significantly improve the educational experiences for all students involved. We have also been able to utilize new curricular resources or textbooks in 2 different subject areas over the last few years, in mathematics and English language arts. We've been using Big Ideas resources in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry for the last 2 years. And this past year, we have implemented the English language arts My Perspectives resources in English 9. And we will expand the My Perspectives in English 10 next year. We also piloted 2 new resources in world languages this year, and we hope to implement the selected resource in the for classroom use in Spanish 1 and 2 in the near future. At Berthoud High School, we offer a number of dual credit courses that permit students to earn college credit alongside their high school credit. This concurrent enrollment option at Berthoud High School continues to grow every year as our teachers gain graduate level credentials in subject area specialties. Currently at Berthoud High School, a student can earn up to 26 college credits in our building for free by taking courses like AP Bio, AP Chem, Modern America, AP US History, Western Civilization, AP Lit. And next year we're going to add AP Psych for college credit. The great thing about a dual credit concurrent enrollment class is that your in-class grade at Berthoud High School is also the grade that goes on your college transcript. Here are some facility improvements over the summer at Berthoud High School. There's going to be a number of ADA compliant work in our athletic and PE locker rooms, which includes remodeling parts of each bathroom in these areas, such as installing wheelchair accessible stalls, lowering fixtures, soap dispensers and mirrors, and replacing faucets. ADA compliant work on wheelchair ramps in the hallways by our band room, in this auditorium, and the east side building entrance. I don't know if you ever try to push a wheelchair in here, you could lose it pretty quickly, so it's not ADA compliant. And so this is an upgrade that has to happen in this area and a couple of the areas of our building. We are converting a custodial closet in our athletic PE locker room area into a gender-neutral restroom change room. We are also adding a single-person gender-neutral restroom on each of the 2 floors of our academic wings on the west side of our building. We are restructuring the bus lane and the student drop-off areas during high traffic times to improve traffic flow. Around our building, we are creating a one-way traffic flow around our building during morning arrival and afternoon dismissal times. Only buses will be permitted in front of our building during these busy traffic times. They're going to repaint all of our parking lots this summer on the west and east sides and the buses in front of our building. And we're going to refinish both of our gymnasium floors. Last couple things I'll talk about are our spring athletics and activities. Our baseball team has an undefeated record of 13-0. We are ranked 2nd in the state. Our girls soccer team right now, preseason games were very challenging. We chose to take on some pretty tough schools. But now that the league has started, our girls soccer team is finding its way with a 3-1-1 record. Track and field, our boys track team is ranked high in the state, and our girls track team has numerous individual members with consistent placing in each of the meets. Girls tennis, they're making great efforts and are being and offering their best every day on the courts. This is a year we would call it as rebuilding. Boys volleyball, we have 4 boys from Berthoud High School that compete on our district team at Mountain View High School this spring. And esports, which is run by Mr. Keith Lobdell, who is also with our FBLA members. He runs 2 teams and 2 different seasons with esports. And so we found out today, this is the 2nd year of operation, and I guess it's our 1st season with his 2nd team called Super Smash Brothers. We made it to the 2nd round of playoffs, and so they're doing pretty well. And it's a group of 3 freshman boys that are very good at Super Smash Brother games. All right, our band, orchestra, and choir string concerts are coming up soon, May 8th for our show choir, and May 9th for band, orchestra, and our mixed choir. Knowledgeable, which is something Berthoud High School is very proud of, placed 3rd in our classification at state, and 5th overall at state. And it's my understanding that they're competing at the Nationals online this Saturday, if I'm correct. Mr. Boyd would know that.
That's right.
He's pretty connected to our knowledgeable team. FBLA, we just celebrated those at one student who finished in 1st place and qualifies for the national competition this summer. We had our prom event, which was this past Saturday here locally at the Brookside Gardens. It was very well attended. Kids had a great time and really enjoyed that evening. And graduation is just around the corner. Our graduation will take place here on our football field at 9 a.m. on May 25th at Maxmar Stadium. We are looking forward to seeing our 150 graduates cross that stage and take on the world beyond our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we would like to introduce, we're excited to recommend Dr. Olivia Gillespie as the principal of Lucille Irwin Middle School. We'll just pause for a round of applause because Dr. Gillespie has spent the past 6 years with the Colorado Department of Education as a reading, writing, and communications content specialist. In this position, Olivia provided state-level leadership and support for literacy standards, revision, and implementation, educator effectiveness, literacy assessment, and research-proven instructional practices. She also participated in Read Act instructional program and assessment reviews and was co-lead and founder of the Teaching and Learning CoLab Conference. Her work at CD also included communicating and working with schools, districts, state, and national literacy organizations. Dr. Gillespie also spent 2 years with Denver Public Schools as a Dean of Instruction. Here, Dr. Gillespie led the ILT on implementation of school-wide instructional programs in targeted improvement areas as designed in the school's UIP. She also analyzed student and school data to determine programming to address and close the achievement and academic gaps for students. Dr. Gillespie also spent 5 years in Aurora Public Schools as a secondary English language arts teacher, ELA department instructional coach, and served on various committees. Also during this time, Olivia served as the principal for the Summer Scholars Unlimited program at John Amessi Elementary School. She earned her EDD in leadership from Equity Education, principal's licensure, and master's degree in curriculum and instruction from the University of Colorado, Denver. Olivia also received her BA in English with Mackin State University, Middle Georgia University. Olivia's work with CDE, as well as her experience in the secondary classroom, is the perfect fit for Thompson School District and Irwin Middle School.
He said I had to do a speech. Okay. Well, hello, board. How are you all doing? I apologize for my tardiness. I was just over at Lucille Irwin and we were doing some hiring, so I ran a little late. But I'm here and I'm pleased to be in front of you. So what that doesn't tell you, my crowning achievement is that I'm a mother and I am a grandmother. That is my best achievement in life. So all of those accolades, yes, they are accolades. I worked hard to get them, but I value being a mother and a grandmother more so than anything else. So I will take whatever questions. If you wanted to know a little bit more about me, yes, I have done. What that doesn't say also is that as Dean of Instruction, we were the first administrative team to get a school off a turnaround in 2 years. And so we have done the work before. So I'm looking forward to doing that work again with Lucille Irwin and getting us where we need to get for our students and for our parents and our community. So I'll be quiet, and if there's a question, then I will field the question. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, so thank you to all those who appeared before us during public participation. Congratulations to the students whose honors and accolades were shared with you. We're going to move now to board and committee reports. And the board will be sharing either about a meeting or a committee opportunity that they've been part of, or some type of an event. So I'm assuming that those in attendance and those online will be able to hear Barb and Alexandra. Do we know whether that's the case? Yes. All right. Alexandra, shall we start with you? Whether you want to talk to us about a meeting or some other type of a committee opportunity or an event that you attended.
Sure. I don't have a whole lot to report. None of my committees are currently in session right now, so I haven't attended those. I did have the opportunity yesterday, not as much as a board member as a mother, but to attend the Loveland Wind Symphony. Their highest level band was competing at the Colorado Bandmasters Association state competition up at CSU yesterday afternoon. And so I got to go up there, and it was nice. It worked out that it was on my day off on Tuesday, so I got to go and listen to them perform 3 pieces, and they did a very marvelous job. And ended up with what's called a superior with distinction, which is the highest possible ranking that a band can get. So that was a nice experience, and something I always enjoy doing.
Thank you, Alexandra. Barb, would you like to share something?
Stu, I'm going to pass.
All right.
Yeah, because I don't have enough of a voice.
Okay, I certainly understand. Denise, I think we'll start down here with you to share whatever you want to share with the audience.
So my family had the opportunity working with Kendra Omlund, the high school German teacher that has both the Loveland and Thompson Valley kids, to host 2 students from Germany for 3 weeks. And so doing German immersion, giving them an experience, and really enhanced the classroom, gave the kids a great time. I have 2 juniors, so they were also about that same age. Great, and then the program everyone who participated, which was 4 families in the district, their students will be going to Germany for 3 weeks this summer. So a really neat program called Friendship Connection.
Nancy.
A lot of I don't have that many committees, and so I wanted to talk about on April 6th, I attended with my husband Robert the fundraiser for the Veterans Honor Monument that's going to be going up at the Loveland Sports Park. The room was packed. It was really a good fundraising event. What was really nice was, if you have never seen the POW Missing in Action, Missing Man table ceremony, it's a tradition that I just think signifies in a really good way that everyone that leaves to fight and defend America doesn't always come back. And so that was a very moving moment. As well as we had 2 World War II vets in attendance, George, who's 98, and Jane, who's 97. And so they both received a standing ovation, and that was really nice to see. And they also had Craig Campbell, who I never heard of before, but he was a really good country singer. I guess he has some awards. But it was a really good evening, and I think it's really good that we support and remember those that have fought for our freedom and died for us.
Thank you, Nancy. I'll go ahead and report next. On April 6th, along with Barb, I attended the Berthoud Bash, and because we're meeting in Berthoud this evening, probably many of you in the audience here are familiar with the Berthoud Bash. It's a fundraising event, an annual fundraising event that actually began in 2009, and in its 15-year history has provided a lot of money for a variety of resources for the Berthoud schools. The event on April 6th brought in approximately $150,000. Keep in mind, this is one fundraising event, and that particular amount of money pushed the 15-year total over $2 million that the Berthoud community and Berthoud community supporters have contributed for resources for the Berthoud schools. So it was a great evening. It was a lot of fun. The theme had to do with the 80s and 90s, and I guess the basic theme was Saved by the Bell. And so it was great fun, very productive for the Berthoud schools, and certainly speaks to the commitment of this community to support of the schools. So I'll move on down the line here to Amy.
Thank you, Stu. Both of my committees met. April 9th was PI, and April 10th was SEAC. I'm going to speak a little bit about PI, which is Early Childhood Partners in Education. One of our, or part of our education at the meeting was about sugar shockers for the students there. And it was pretty cool. The educator had a big poster and was just, and goes in and educates the students about how much sugar is in everyday things that we eat and that we drink, really focusing on sugar and how that impacts behavior, oral health with teeth. And it was really good to just see the visuals of hidden sources of sugar. Part of this education is one of the mandates of Head Start is they have to take the students' BMIs and track them. And so, you know, and then trying to encourage kids to drink water. And so it was just really eye-opening for me, and it's just, it's great that they start at such a young age with the kids with just that positive education for lifelong health. And the meeting was great. We also talked about the community assessment and recommendations, and I think we'll get to that a little later, but what I really valued was that one of the recommendations was staff mental health training. So I think that that's important too. But yeah, so sugar shockers, that was fun.
Thank you. Dawn?
So DAC met a couple weeks ago and is really kind of pulling together all of the information that has been looked at all year from all of the different unified improvement plans and all the different presentations that have really kind of spanned the whole of our district, right? Because it is really looking at everything at that high level in order to prepare for the recommendations. So next meeting, which I think is next week, don't hold me to that, we are going to have an extra long meeting to really dig in and finalize and formalize and get all of that ready. So that's just a little preview of what's coming this way to everybody for us to get to see. And all of the hard work that everybody's put in has been really quite amazing to see how dedicated everybody is and how much insight there is in that room. So thanks to everybody who's doing that.
All right, thank you. That concludes board committee reports. The last item on the agenda under public participation is public comment. I believe we have one commenter who's here in person. And before inviting him to come up, Dawn, would you read the statement connected with public comment?
Yes. Because the board wants to hear the viewpoints of the public and also needs to conduct its business in an orderly and efficient manner, it will schedule time during its regular board meetings for brief comments and questions from the public. The board will set a time for public participation prior to the business portion of the meeting. The time for each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, and each individual will only be recognized once. If there is a large number of speakers, the board may elect to take comments for 1 hour before the business meeting and conclude public comment after the business meeting. Public comments and questions at a regular meeting may deal with any topics related to the board's conduct of the schools. Speakers may offer such criticism of school operations and programs as concerns them, but are encouraged to exercise their speech rights responsibly. Personnel matters will be discussed in executive session. Andy Chrisman.
I
wasn't going to speak, but I saw the list was empty. Good evening. Dr. Schaefer, Madam President, members of the Board of Education. I'm Andy Chrisman, a parent, a music teacher, and currently serving as president of the Thompson Education Association. 3 weeks ago, the TEA presented you with 2 statements signed by over 500 educators regarding student behavior in the Thompson School District. So I, along with many others, watched with interest the segment of the study session on April 3rd, where the district discussed student behavior responses with you and would like to share some additional thoughts with you. The executive directors highlighted several academic Tier 1 strategies the district is implementing in order to increase student engagement, and shared several Tier 3 processes that can be used when students exhibit extreme or repetitively disruptive behaviors. The presentation referenced the TSD discipline matrix, which is intended to provide consistency in responding to violations of the district's discipline code. The presentation also mentioned that we have a specialist that is trained in restorative practices, and that a few individuals from most schools will be trained in restorative practices next year. We are also looking forward to hearing the results of the survey designed by the Professional Concerns Committee to hear more perspectives from staff. We, the group of concerned individuals we've been talking about, have hoped the results will push our thinking as a district even further. I agree that increasing student engagement can improve classroom environments, and we are seeing behaviors in our schools that are not triggered by a lack of engaging instruction. We as a district need to invest more time and effort in our Tier 1 and Tier 2 strategies in responding to student behavior so that we create a more safe, just, and equitable school environment. First, we believe that responses to behavior need to be more predictable. The discipline matrix seems to be designed with flexibility in mind. This is good to a point. For example, the possible responses to bullying range from conference with student to deferred expulsion. That can make it harder to ensure the discipline code is enforced, quote, uniformly, fairly, and consistently for all students, which is the quote from the purpose statement of the discipline matrix. Some consistency, transparency, and predictability in our school's response to behaviors would reduce the rate of recidivism. The discipline matrix should also include some specific teaching of new skills and some alternative consequences or interventions for repeat offenders. We believe that we as a district also need to invest time and resources in both restorative practice and de-escalation training for all staff. Only some of our staff, and I scrolled too far, are trained in these areas, and while a few sites have developed an effective school-wide restorative justice approach, we have not invested in a district-wide implementation. Effective de-escalation practices would decrease the amount of time that learning is disrupted for all students, and restorative practices would help address the needs of not just the student who is disruptive, but also the needs of the people harmed by this disruption. This requires devoting time during district professional development days, time on Wednesday morning, and may have a staffing component as well. It was tremendous. Thank you.
I need a giant plug for when we're off-site. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. All right, that concludes the public participation part of the agenda. We'll move now to agenda item number 6, which is the action consent items. There are several items on this consent agenda. I'll begin by reading the list for you. 6.1 is approval of personnel, extra duty, and coaching recommendations. 6.2, approval of expenditures over $50,000. 6.3, approval of gifts and donations. 6.4, approval of Head Start self-assessment report. 6.5, approval of Head Start fiscal policy manual. 6.6, approval of middle school science curriculum adoption. 6.7, approval of the 2024-2025 Thompson School District organizational chart. And 6.8, approval of the Week of the Young Child proclamation. Board members, are there any of these 8 items that you would like to pull from action consent and move to discussion action? Hearing nothing in regard to that, I will accept a motion then to the action consent items as I read them.
I'll move.
Thank you, Nancy. That needs a second.
Second.
Was that? That was Dawn, all right. So the motion by Nancy, second by Dawn. Is there any discussion before we proceed to the vote? Laura Lee, will you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Amy Doran,
Aye.
Dawn Kirk,
Aye.
Barbara Cruz,
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld.
Aye.
Before we move on, and because it's part of board policy, let me read some information connected with item 6.3, approval of gifts and donations. First of all, the alignment with Strive 2025 is that assets are properly inventoried, maintained, and used appropriately without waste. And 4.3 is provide transparency in the use of resources. The purpose of this is school board policy states that gifts and donations over $1,000 need to be approved by the Board of Education at a formal meeting. So this particular gift is a fleet of 24 bikes with pedal conversion kits valued at $9,000 for the All Kids Bike Kindergarten Learn to Ride program at Centennial Elementary School. The gift comes from Yamaha and Tri-City Cycle in Loveland. Thanks very much to this Loveland business for the generous donation. Will you join me, please, in expressing appreciation for this generous donation? All right. We have no discussion action items, which are the next part of the agenda. Oh, thank you. Yes. Let me move back to item 6.8, which is the approval of the Week of the Young Child, and Amy will read the proclamation.
So this is the Week of the Young Child. I want to point out right out here on the brick wall, but when you come into the auditorium, there are handprints of our early childhood education students. That's just a small sample of the students that we have in our early child education program. When we had our board study session at Stansberry, the room was filled with, 800, six, yeah, just all over in Stansberry. So it was just awesome. Those handprints are our earliest learners here in TSD, so I'm pretty happy to be reading this. So whereas the Thompson School District Integrated Early Childhood Program and the Early Childhood Council of Larimer County, in conjunction with the National Association for the Education of Young Children, are celebrating the Week of the Young Child, April 6th through 12th, 2024. And whereas these organizations are working to improve early learning opportunities, including early literacy programs that can provide a foundation of learning for children in Larimer County, Colorado, and whereas early years are learning years, and whereas by calling attention to the need for quality early childhood care and education for all young children and families within the community, we can hope to improve the quality and availability of such services, and whereas teachers and others who make a difference in the lives of young children deserve thanks and recognition. And whereas public policies that support early learning for all young children are crucial to our young children's futures. Now, therefore, we, the Thompson School District Board of Education, do hereby proclaim April 6th through 12th, 2024 as the Week of the Young Child. And approved and proclaimed today, April 17th, 2024.
All right. Thank you. And approval of the proclamation was part of the vote that we took of the action consent items. Moving then to discussion items. There are 5 discussion items, beginning with item 8.1, which is federal and state programs update.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President, members of the board, and Dr. Schaefer. Melissa Schneider, Chief Academic Officer. Tonight we bring to you an update on federal and state programs from our Director of Federal and State Programs, Mr. Jesse T. Harina. He will talk to you about some of the federal funds that we have and what we do with them, title dollars. Those serve several of our schools, as well as some of the programming for our homeless youth, high mobility youth, as well as some of our youth in poverty. So I am going to ask him to give you an update on some of the many ways that we are helping those kids.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President, members of the board, and Dr. Schaefer. I really enjoy speaking about state and federal programs. I would say that's primarily for me what I believe to be one of the most essential programming elements in the educational tenure of any K-12 student or pre-K-12 student. As you can see, when we're looking at really what's essential about it, at the core of it all is what is Title I. Now, Title I federal programming comes in numerous, numerical order. So there's Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and then there's other titles like Title VI. Primarily what most of the local educational agencies use are Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. That's something I'd like to discuss with you at extent a little bit more today. As you go into the next slide, you'll find that our schools for 2024 and 2025 are 7. We have a combination of schools from different areas across our district that include Lorraine Edmondson, Lincoln Elementary, Sarah Milner, Truscott Elementary, Winona Elementary, Cottonwood Plains, which will be a new school for next year. We're super excited to get them on board. And Peakview Academy K through 5. Even though it's a Peakview Academy K through 8, it's K through 5 that is above the threshold for eligibility for free and reduced lunch, which is what the indicator is to determine a Title I school. On to the next slide. What I want to discuss a little bit more formally is what makes a Title I school unique. And I think at the core of it all is the essence around what's supplemental and what's supplanting. So when it comes to federal dollars, what you can't do and what will get you out of compliance is supplanting. And what supplanting essentially is looking at Title I federal program dollars and using them in substitute of maybe what general fund dollars is already doing. So supplemental means exactly what it means by definition. What are we doing above and beyond in addition to general funding for schools that are particularly determined that their free and reduced eligibility brings in risk factors to the students and their families that we need to remove some educational barriers or mitigate them. So that's essentially what supplement versus supplant is. If you go on to the next slide, what are some of the district managed funds that we leverage and how do we leverage them at the district level? So we leverage them through professional development, through family engagement, through staffing, and of course McKinney-Vento support and staff. So to speak a little bit further about McKinney-Vento and the educational stability dollars, which are also state and federal program dollars, in Title I, buckets exist for students that are considered highly mobile. When you think about the umbrella of highly mobile, we're looking at student groups including foster youth, unaccompanied youth, kinship, in transition, out-of-home placement, and experiencing homelessness. Now, however, they all seem to experience familiar risk factors. They all essentially require and deserve intentional, unique practices to really address what's going on around their educational experience. So for McKinney-Vento, that's a 3-year cycle, just like the Title I cycle. We will be writing a new cycle for that particular grant next year. We'll also be writing a particular 3-year cycle for the Educational Stability Grant, which is what supports our foster youth. Currently, I just started actually earlier this week to begin writing the consolidated application for the next 3 years. That's also a 3-year cycle. If we look a little bit further to the school-based funding that takes place, it's very similar and of course is aligned with the district-based funding activities, which is instructional staff, instructional licenses, professional development, and family engagement. And that needs to be in alignment because there needs to be coherence, not only that exists with the district UIP, but also the school-based UIPs. As you know, some of the most essential support systems that exist for any student to have success in any educational setting is what does the familial or the home support look like? Well, as you know, these are our highest poverty schools that, because of that, come with risk factors. A lot of transition is taking place. That's why it's so important that our Title I schools have somewhat of an agreement. It's considered a compact among what are the responsibilities that exist that the student must engage in, that the family must engage in, or the caregiver, and that the school must engage in. And if collectively we are all really showing up with those types of promising practices, the end result is going to be success both in academic achievement and academic growth. If we move on again a little bit further around family and community engagement, these are some of the areas that exist in that area. Families have the right to be involved in their child's education. Now, although we know that that exists among all schools, it's something that we highly recommend among our Title I schools. You know, we would be naive to think that there aren't different factors that exist for families supporting students that are attending Title I schools. In some cases, you'll find that children surpass the education of their families by the 7th, 8th grade. So at that point in time, it's really a LEA's responsibility or a district's responsibility to really look at what is the academic identity of that child. And when I think about the student compact, I also think about 3 significant things that take place when we're looking at the academic identity of a child and how we use improvement programming dollars. It's academic identity, meaning what do we believe a child can accomplish? And how does that compare to what that child believes they can accomplish? Academic autonomy, right? Academic activism. How do they gain agency in their own learning? But most importantly, we go back to that academic self-belief around to believe that they can do it, and there's people there supporting them on a day-to-day basis, despite the circumstances that they're experiencing. You know, and it's really prevalent when we think about that. Currently, we have approximately around 40 families living in hotels. We've identified nearly 800 students as experiencing homelessness. And again, to make sure that we have an idea of what that means around the definition, homelessness means that a student or a family is lacking a fixed nighttime residence. So it's a mixture of things, right? They could be living in a shelter, they can be living in a hotel, they can be surfing couches, or they can be living essentially in a car. So there's a spectrum of that. And as needs have increased, we've seen a lot of that impact also be a result of the COVID pandemic as well, due to evictions, due to mobility, and because I-25 houses a lot of hotels, this tends to be a place that some folks relocate. So we do our best that we can for the time that we have our folks here in our community. Again, to really think about the family partnerships that exist when it involves family programming and improvement programming, it's really important for our folks to know their educational rights, what they can and cannot do, and what they are afforded in the educational system. So we really do recommend, and we create spaces where our families can have discussions with principals, can have discussions with teachers. Not that it's so much different than other schools, however, it's much more intentional and targeted to make sure that we are identifying the elements that need to be addressed when it comes to what they're experiencing outside of the school experience. Now, for some excitement, one of the things that we've chosen to do this year when it comes to some of our federal program dollars is use some external consultation. So part of state and federal programming is that there's state identifications and there's federal identifications or designations based on the performance of particular student groups that are served within these particular schools. Some of those student groups include FRL eligibility, students identified as minority, multilingual learners, students with disabilities, and how our schools perform in those areas will determine the access of funding that they have. So if they're not at the performance level that's meeting the needs according to the school performance framework, they have access to particular dollars. Well, one of the things that you will find in the strategic design that we do with Colorado Education Initiative is that we're trying to uncover really what the comprehensive needs assessment is telling us. What is emerging as themes? That way it can influence the next 3 years of how we're going to inform our spending, our activities, to make sure that they're representative of the needs, not only universally among those 7 schools, but also very much targeted based on the needs of those particular students in those particular schools. And the reason that there needs to be a combination of universal best practices and school-based best practices is because within those 7 schools, there's high mobility that exists with students in those 7 schools. So within those 7 schools, you have a particular percentage, I would say around 3 to 5%, that 1 to 4 students transition from school to school to school throughout the year based on where their living situation is at. So it's going to be based on the proximity to access that school, because along with poverty comes elements such as lack of transportation, lack of certain resources. So we try to do that and address that. But to get deeper around our work with Colorado Education Initiative, if you wanted to go to that next slide, you'll find on the left, you'll find our instructional framework, and on the right, you'll find a framework that talks around where we're at when a system is strategically incoherent and what it would look like to be strategically coherent. And when I think about one of the most essential things around state and federal program dollars is how we braid the funding. So to truly identify what are the goals and what are the measures that are within each of the grant narratives that we need to honor and base the funding on. You'll find sometimes that there's some overlap, that we're maybe using too much money in one particular area when we could just use it in one sole area. So it's really looking at, one, are we honoring where the grant is telling us that we need to use the funding? Are we within the compliance of the allowances? Making sure that we don't overlap, and are we extremely using each other's funding sources the best we can for efficacy? Because one of the things that we don't want to do as a local educational agency is give money back or be out of compliance and supplant that money, because there's penalties that come with that for future grant writing that we might be wanting to take part of. So part of this journey with CEI, or Colorado Education Initiative, is that we've had a launch in January of approximately a task force of a combination of different stakeholders across our 7 schools and district personnel that took part in the launch, that did this work with CEI. We also had the ability to attend the National ESEA Title I Conference with some of our all of our Title I schools. They were taking teams as well. We did some debriefing there. We did some alignment there. And then we looked at what are some of the universal themes that are coming up of the needs based on schools, and what are some of the practices that we can look forward to next year to begin to implement and really provide learning opportunities. That way capacity is built along with student agency. Student agency doesn't exist without teacher agency, right? So, we also give some learning opportunities, some leadership distribution. That way we can develop capacity and agency across our 7 schools with each staff member, classified and certified. The next page will show you some of what was really cool about this was that seeing is believing visits that we took place. So coordinated by CEI, we were able to visit 3 schools that are distinguished. One school was in St. Vrain, one school was in DPS, and another school was in Colorado Springs. Each of them Title I schools, each of them with comparable demographics and comparable free and reduced percentages. And the reason we did that is because, I came from District 6, and the threshold for District 6 Title I schools is much different. So to go to a school that really doesn't look like our school, they're going to be having different practices. We wanted to go visit schools that look like our schools, So we had that, and it was great. And one of the things that's also essential within making sure that we're always using contemporary and current practices for the ever-evolving diversity that continues in Title I schools is the networking that exists. So we're seeing these schools that way we can see practice and bring something with us. Not only bring something with us, but also look and say, well, I don't want to do that, right? So it really is great to be able to answer questions with people in the field in different locations and really experience what they're experiencing. And plus, you begin to develop this collective network among Title I schools across the state, because there are convenings that you have the opportunity to learn and benefit, but also them benefit from us. So that's been a great time. And we're not done yet with CEI. So we have really our culminating convening. There it says TBD, but that's now been scheduled for May 15th. I, as I've said, started the Title I Consolidated App process of writing. It's, I'll be honest, it's a beast of a document, right? It's like 65 pages without any narratives. So we're looking probably at about 75 to 100 pages of a consolidated application that I have from now until the end of June to complete. So it's going to be an adventure. I'll be locked in my office quite a bit, but all good. One of the things I'm super excited for too, that what I'd like to bring to our Title I schools is our own little mini Title I conference that we can bring in as a path of onboarding, to have our newbies really acclimate to really what a Title I school is, but also offer, you know, high engaging learning activities, opportunities for newness. You know, one of the things that is really essential in Title I schools is that sometimes you got to look at how does it look like from going from an intervention for youth to an invention for youth. You know, as I mentioned earlier, it's really important that we engage stakeholders to almost co-generatively create activities that they also have a responsibility to be a part of. You know, that partnership is huge. We bring in, you know, families with fathers and mothers that may not have had a successful education, that there might be some trust issues with the educational tenure that they've had. So began to really develop authentic and genuine relationships. That partnering for learning both at the school level, at the teacher level, and at the district level are essential. So what's emerged has been great things. So now beyond Title I, another significant element for state and federal programming are our schools that are identified through the federal program, which can be either identified as priority improvement, a turnaround school, a comprehensive support school, a targeted school, or an additional targeted school. All of these are identifications based on the performance of our particular student group. And if that takes place, these schools have access to additional funding, title or not title. So this year we had the ability, based on the prioritization of these schools, to access some funding. And they were BF Kitchen, Bill Reed Middle School, Lucille Irwin Middle School, and Peakview Academy. And these are a part of what's called the EASY Grant, Empowering Action for School Improvement. And there are different buckets or different routes for this grant. Some is exploration, some is transformation, really based on the needs of the school and based on that particular learning group that we're looking to address. BF Kitchen, Bill Reed Middle School, and Lucille Irwin right now are undergoing a school diagnostic review by a CED-approved external consultation named TNTP. So what that means is that you have a group of stakeholders come in and do a random selection of different staff and students that are in that school, and they are asked familiar questions. And by those perception responses, we begin to identify school connectedness. We begin to identify whether we believe grade level content is being taught 100%. We begin to identify the impact that maybe students with disabilities is having upon that particular school when it comes to designations. A lot of different things emerge from that. And what we hope to emerge from that is going to influence the next steps, which is called improvement programming. So because these schools also receive the ability to have a school diagnostic review, that is going to allow them to have now the next 2 years, $80,000 each year for improvement programming purposes. So that means is that they'll get learning opportunities, they'll get PD, but most importantly, we'll have the ability to fund them to come in out of school time to do some work, right? You know, so they get compensated, they get to do additional work that they're passionate about, but they also get some love, they get to visit some schools still, they get PD learning opportunities, which for us is really important when we're looking at addressing those needs. Now, Peakview Academy was the one school that didn't do a school diagnostic review because they did that one last year because they were part of this process. This year, because they were part of last year's process, now they're going to be a part of the Colorado Transformation Network. So what that means is that there are multiple schools in this transformation network that they get to convene with and learn from each other. And also, they get improvement programming dollars as well. So we're super excited about that. We're also super excited that now that we have passed the threshold of school diagnostic reviews at particular schools, next year we'll have the ability to write for a district design and led grant through the EASY dollars. Really don't know what that looks like yet. That'll take some work to really address what's going on, but it gives us even more opportunities in the future. That being said, enough of my talking. Do we have any questions?
All right, questions, board? Barb, I'll begin with you. Do you have a question? No? Okay, Alexandra?
So I just have one question. As far as the Title I program, are only elementary schools eligible for it? Or does it just so happen that only our elementary schools are part of it?
Based on the threshold and percentages that's determined by the local educational agency, it's the elementary schools that surpass that threshold. Rarely do secondary schools hit that Title I threshold. The state or the federal mandated threshold for any school is that if they are at 75% free and reduced or above, they are mandated to be a Title I school. Other than that, it's up to the local educational agency, that district, to determine that window of threshold. And right now, it fulfills the needs of 7 schools, which I think is perfect, to tell you the truth, because there is a 10% annual decrease just by nature around federal programs. So the more schools you have, the less allocations you have across the board. And really, it becomes really more difficult to address those needs. So we're looking really at how we can impact those particular 7 schools the best we can with the supplemental funding that we have. But that's a great question.
All right, let's start down here. Denise, do you have a question?
Yes. What percentage of our elementary students are represented by these 7 schools?
Percentage as in?
We have 1,000 students, we have 12 buildings, or whatever it is.
So you figure we have 7 elementary schools, I would say with an average of 250 students per school. So I would say close to a couple of thousand students, if I were to do the math in my head.
Out of a total elementary number.
Oh, gosh, I don't even know. I think Sarah probably, yeah.
Total elementary.
Total elementary.
It's about 16
16 schools.
elementaries,
So
with
half.
7, so a little less than
Number of
half
students.
elementary. Around probably 1,700.
Okay.
1,700 to 2,000 students.
Super.
All right, Nancy's question?
I was curious, so when you look at the Title I schools, so you were talking about that, we can't supplant the general, use the federal or state money to supplant general funds. What would you say the money that we do get for federal and state for the Title I schools, how much additional is used to go towards intervention, whether it's additional interventionists for like reading or other, programs, how much more difference is there versus,
As compared to schools that are not titled?
Yeah.
I would say it's school to school. When I think about if I were looking just simply at FTE and interventionists, I would say maybe 1 or 2 FTE interventionists. One of the things that I've identified personally is really the need for alignment in that area, to really be more efficient with our dollars and spending, to make sure that, for instance, one of the things that I'm hoping that next year's funding will provide is the ability to have 1 full-time family, school, and community advocate at each of our schools to begin to address some of that partnering. And that'll be run through a district managed account, but when we're looking simply at the school budget, I would say each school benefits primarily by 1 or 2 FTE that would be targeted or focused to a particular area. One of the things that is interesting is that we do have small schools, which makes that a little bit more difficult around how we're able to make sure that we have opportunity, class reduction. and kids do not exist kind of essentially in the same cohort all the way through that elementary school. So I've been really thinking about that lately. That's something new to me. So I've been doing a lot of research on that and what other schools are doing with similar populations or size of populations.
And my other question is, because I know with the free and reduced lunch, that changed a lot when we went to, healthy food for all.
Right.
So are you getting most of your numbers now through the Medicaid records, but with the state, coordinating?
I would say that the effort very much exists in Title I schools to continue with the practice that's been traditional. So we are still doing the work the best we can to have parents fill out the paperwork. So that just hasn't stopped. It continues to be the case. So, and that's a best practice that's recommended through the state, understanding that there's universal free now. It doesn't eliminate the fact that there's still a need. And that is a positive of having smaller schools. It's a lot easier to reach 200 parents or caregivers than it is, 600 at a bigger type of elementary school. So no, those efforts still exist. So I would say there's been a slight decline, but not something detrimental that we would not have an idea of the school and where it's at a Title I school.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I definitely considered that, when we're looking at that, because I knew that was going to impact us.
All right, Amy?
Actually, Alexandra asked my question about secondary schools.
All right. Dawn?
This is really helpful, and I'm just wondering what do we get out of the Khan app, considering how big it is? Obviously, there's like a reason that it is, gonna be that big of a time investment for you, because I know that's a lot of work. So what do we get from it if we are awarded it?
I get really tired hands.
Yeah.
No, we get a lot out of it, right? Because included in the Khan app is like homeless set aside.
Okay.
There's cross-programming questions, Title II and Title III, so when you look at multilingual learners, you look at instructional coaches, you look at PD. Title IV goes to some non-publics and some charters. So there's a breadth that's extended, across the board. I think it's one of the most essential documents in any school district. It really is. I think that it's really important to make sure that we work closely with the Title I schools and definitely the rest of the team that are directors that are overseeing certain areas as departments, whether it's special education, whether it's curriculum. But we get something that impacts everybody at some point in time. And I think the most profitable thing that we get out of it is the ability to support funding to bring in folks beyond a low-impact strategy. Nothing against parent-teacher conferences, that's just a traditional practice. So here we have the ability to use funding to bring folks in different capacities. In May, we are going to have a event at Peakview Academy that we invite all of our students that are identified as McKinney-Vento from each of our 7 schools. We'll have community organizations there. We'll have people getting haircuts. We'll have shoes there. We'll have food there. So we'll just have a lot of different things that exist primarily because of the supplemental funding. We also are looking at what does after-school programming and summer programming look like for high engaging activities. Each school district offers learning opportunities of credit recovery or credit accrual, which is cool and all, but really how do we enrich and enhance instruction also for students that may not have access to a museum in the summertime, may not have access to a lot of things in the summertime, to books. So that's what really is special about this funding too, is that it really allows us to bring community in.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jesse. I don't have a question that hasn't already been asked, but thank you for your very informative and detailed presentation.
Awesome, appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right, the next agenda item is item 8.2, which is the 2024-2025 budget update from Gordon Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Dr. Schaefer, members of the board, I'm Gordon Jones, Chief Financial Officer for the district. This meeting has been moving very expeditiously, so I'm glad to be in front of the board and return some level of normalcy to the proceedings, perhaps. As always with alignment, our alignment with Strive 2025, the stewardship of resources, increasing alignment of how those resources are expended, and providing transparency in the use of those resources. A very quick legislative update. There's 3 bills that I've noted here for the board's consideration or an update. The long bill for the state budget is House Bill 24-1430. That has been passed through both chambers. There were amendments in both chambers. It's gone back to the Joint Budget Committee for conference committee hearings to try to reconcile those and then move it forward to both chambers again. By all indications, it appears that it's nearing final adoption. The school finance bill is Senate Bill 24-188. That was introduced on March 22nd. That further extends or provides further details on what was appropriated in the long bill for what should be spent or is available to be spent in education, K-12 education specifically. That was introduced in the Senate and has been passed through the Senate. It is now in the House with, it's been assigned to the Education Committee and will follow the same process through the House. I would assume somewhat expeditiously, but no confirmation of that. And then a new piece of legislation affecting schools that was introduced late last week, House Bill 24-1448. This would substantially change the School Finance Act funding formula that has been in existence since 1994. It's a long bill. There's a long bill, not as the long bill, but a long in length bill detailing a variety of different things. It would be a significant change to the school finance funding formula that we know right now. It would be implemented beginning in the 25-26 year, so it wouldn't impact 24-25. But that has been introduced in the House, and it has been assigned to the House Education Committee as well. Moving on to the first of what is 2 of the fundamental concepts associated with the School Finance Act, the funded pupil count. And the other side of that is how much we get for each of the pupils, or a per pupil revenue number we'll talk about on the next slide. But this chart is intended to show the comparison between head count, which are the number of students that we educate, versus funded pupil count, which is a formula that is undergone every year after the October count date happens at the beginning of October to determine how many students will be funded by. Just a couple quick things that I'll show you or point out on this historical reference is how close those bars are overall. But if you look back to the 2021 year, 2021 actual years, you can see a bit of a bigger difference there. That was really the first year that the district started experiencing the benefits of the averaging mechanism that is in the school finance formula, which allows the district to recognize the larger of the current year's enrollment or funded pupil count, or the average of the current year with up to the prior 4 years. So you can see significant difference there, about a 713 funded pupil count difference in 2021. And that gap has consistently closed over the years. And the main reason, there's 2 main reasons for that. Overall declining enrollment within the district, as is being experienced in other districts in Colorado and across the country. And second is each year of the averaging, when you drop off the 5th prior year and add the most recent year, you're replacing a larger number with a smaller number. That's what's causing that averaging benefit to shrink for the district. So you can see in the proposed, not proposed, but preliminary budget for 24-25, that gap has narrowed to about 75 students, difference between how many we have and what our funded pupil count will be. Notes to the right, you can see a head count decline of about 1.4% per year on average over this timeline. funded pupil count has somewhat mirrored that at a minus 1.3% per year decline. That, again, is consistent with what is being seen across the state of Colorado and across the country. It's also important, I think, to note from a funded pupil count perspective, early childhood is no longer included in these numbers. It's treated separately. It's handled through the Department of Early Childhood, Colorado Department of Early Childhood, CDEC. So those numbers are not in the most recent 2 years, but they were in the years before. That's another reason for the decline overall. Moving on to the next slide, again, the School Finance Act formula in its simplest form is how many students do we have that we're funded for, the funded pupil count, and how much do we get for each of those students, the per pupil revenue. So the total program PPR number that's been proposed in the legislation that's working its way through the process for 24-25 is $10,791.07. That is a $700 increase over the prior year, which is a good thing to help with additional funding. I've reflected here 3 different components with TSD, New Vision, and Loveland Classical, because we serve as a pass-through entity for the 2 charter schools. So while their funded pupil count and the net total program is part of our total numbers that we report in a district, it includes the charters. So we record the revenue. We also conversely report the expenditure when we pass those dollars on a monthly basis when they're received. And then the chart at the bottom of the page just graphically shows that distribution. Each of the charter schools is about 7% of the total funded pupil count in the district. So you can see the estimated total program funding for next year, $157.2 million. The next slide details another one of the 3 key components of revenue, and this is our mill levy overrides that have been approved locally by voters within the school district boundaries. There are 3 in existence, one that was passed in 1999, one in 2006, and the latest in 2018. There is, in statute, there's legislation that says that the total amount collected for all, whether you have 1 or 10 MLOs, you are limited as a district to collect only 25% of the total program number. So for next year, that estimated number for TSD is $39.3 million. This year, this fiscal year, 23-24, is the first year that the district, Thompson School District, has reached that 25% threshold. So the revenue that's been collected for this year was a lower percentage than what the growth that we've seen in the past. And that will, I would anticipate that to continue to be the case over the coming years. But not insignificant at $39.3 million for the district. The next item, of the third of the 3 key components of revenue for the district, is all our other revenue. And you can see by the round numbers that are associated with this, these are estimates at this point, but I think they're in the ballpark certainly. The largest item that you'll see there is categoricals, what's known as categoricals. That's called for, again, in the School Finance Act. It's for transportation, special ed, and career and technical ed. The first 2, especially transportation and special education, the reimbursement we get from the state covers approximately 25% of the actual expenditures that we have in those areas, but revenue nonetheless. Specific ownership tax, you've heard me reference this before, that's a very small portion of each licensing fee for vehicles that takes place. There's a component of that in the School Finance Act, but there is an additional component for the that taxation that exceeds the amount that's called for in the School Finance Act. And then universal pre-K, UPK, it's going by a different reference, I think, heading into next year. This is the first year, 23-24 is the first year that program has been in existence. Previous to this, it was rolled into the School Finance Act. It is no longer in that. It's a standalone entity. There were a lot of growing pains with that in 23-24. There's still a fairly significant amount of unknowns or items that need to be addressed heading into 24-25 to make sure we have comfort and confidence that the amounts we're receiving are the correct items, the correct amount there, but a $2.8 million expected receipt there. And then all other revenue is that general catch-all. That includes investment earnings on excess cash that the district may have on hand from time to time. It includes the fully insured models for costs that charter schools reimburse back to the district for under the fully insured model. From time to time, we get separate or different one-time events that occur, whether that be a cell phone lease that for cell phone companies to put equipment on some of our light standards at our stadiums, different things like that. But again, all those items combine to a $2.6 million. When you look at all of the other revenue, about $16.8 million. And then the last slide is that preliminary, and I will emphasize preliminary and estimated. That might be redundant in the title of the slide. But these are the preliminary numbers that we're looking at from a revenue standpoint for the 24-25 fiscal year. And you can see those broken down into the three components that we've just talked about, yielding the $213.2 million of anticipated revenue. In comparison, that same number in 23-24, the current year that we're in, is $202.1 million. So an increase of about $11.2 million in revenue. But keep in mind that is inclusive of the charter schools, so it has the component that, the increased component that needs to go to charter schools. A preliminary estimate would be about $1.2 million there. So actually a bit more than that, $1.9 million probably. So we are, the district, what TSD has available, what this board will be considering over the next month or two for adoption of a budget is, yes, an increase in revenue, but it's not as simple as looking at the total number here versus the budget document for this year and saying that that's additional revenue that's available to the district, because that does include the charter portion as well. So I will be coming forward to the board over the next several meetings with expenditures items, but this was the first step in the process to give you an overview of anticipated revenue for the coming fiscal year. And I'd be glad to address any questions there may be.
All right. Alexandra, I'll start with you this time. Do you have any questions for Gordon?
I do not, thank you.
All right. Barb, any questions? All right. Nancy?
So I guess with the increase in the revenue, and then we combine with basically what I see as a trend that started on your chart from 2019 is like about a 7% decrease in head count, not funded pupil, but head count. So as we continue that kind of decline, these increases in revenue, does that help us serve the needs of the students that we have, or is the increase in revenue really just servicing the rate of inflation?
That's, I think the latter part of your comment is the most accurate. So obviously, if we have declining student enrollment of 1% a year, approximately, that means fewer funded pupils that we'll have each year. It could also help us in the calculation for the averaging mechanism, but I'd rather not count that as a positive necessarily. The other part of the School Finance Act formula is the per pupil revenue, and that is pegged by Amendment 23 in the Constitution of Colorado to that it has to increase each year at the rate of growth, which we don't have because if we're in a declining student population scenario. and the rate of inflation. So that number for the rate of inflation for the 23-24 year that we're in is 8%. That's what was the factor in the School Finance Act formula. For 24-25, that rate is 5.2%, because obviously we're in a declining inflationary period at the moment. So in long answer to your question, yes, the increased funding on a year-over-year basis looking into the future is most likely associated with the rate of inflation.
Okay, and then, so then our revenue is increasing 5%, so I'm guessing our expenses would also increase somewhere around 5% as well. What I think is a little, I'm not certain where the state gets its rate of inflation at, because I'll tell you when I go to the grocery store, it's not declining. I come back with fewer and fewer groceries, and I think that's why we're feeling, especially our staff is feeling such an immense pressure on the wages that they're earning, because the inflation, I think, is higher than what the state is acknowledging. And there's no, I don't expect you to answer that. I just think that impacts what we have to work with.
Understood.
All right. Amy?
No. Thank you.
Dawn?
Thank you.
Denise?
Nothing for you, Gordon.
I do have a question for you, Gordon. My understanding is that because of the very high price tag of the healthy food initiative that was passed a couple of years ago, I'm not sure what the exact name of that program is. My understanding is that the state legislature is looking at limiting that either next year or the year following to only elementary and middle school students. And my question then, if they indeed do that, so my question is, does that impact our district monies, or does all of the money for that particular program come from the state?
First, what you're referring to is the Healthy School Meals for All program.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what the name of the program was.
Yeah. So HSMA, that was adopted by voters last year, so this is the first year of operation of that. I am not aware of any considerations for limiting that only to elementary and middle school students, but there have been conversations that have been communicated to us locally within the district from the state that says certain components that were advertised in the original ballot initiative may not be able to be funded, and that could be increase in wages for food servers, or dollars that are available in a community for purchasing produce locally rather than from a warehouse situation. So my understanding of the considerations that are being taken thus far is that those, to make up that, any potential shortfall would be made up by the state budget, which puts further pressures on the state budget. It's another use of state funds that are outside of K-12 education. It's a separate conversation to have when the JDC and the broader legislative branches are considering how to fund that particular program. I have not heard that there would be anything from a local perspective that would need to be out there other than the impact on the district being a tightening of the state budget perhaps. But that's not to say that that couldn't be the case, what you referred to.
All right, thank you. Board, any other questions for Gordon? Thank you very much for another very complete presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on then to 8.3, possible bond and mill levy results update, survey results update.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President, Board of Education, and Dr. Schaefer, Todd Piccone, Chief Operations Officer. Before I get going tonight, I just want to do it. This is a snippet of the actual survey. So the actual documentation behind this is about 380 pages. So this is not here, obviously, tonight. That will be coming to the board by the end of this week. And then we're going to do a further study session on May 1st to really dive into all the questions and answers and all the stats that Magellan will be joining us for. So I will continue with the highlights, I will say. In alignment with Strive 2025, this is for transparency and use of resources, prioritization of capital and human resources, and community partnerships. So really our survey objective was to gauge the support of a possible bond initiative. So we looked at 3 levels, so 160 million, 250 million, and then 350 million. And also a question on a mill levy override or a special levy override. We also, which we'll talk more about in the May 1st meeting, is surveyed, the survey also gave us data on how TSD is perceived in educating students, fiscal responsibility, and whether the district is heading in the right direction. Just some methodology. So there was, obviously as you see here, there was text sent out, there was emails, there was QR codes, there was school communication, all to summarize that we received almost 3,200 responses. In talking to Magellan Strategies, they've been doing this for years, worked with a lot of districts, and they said that we are their record holders. So it's a very positive and exciting number to come out of the survey with, is almost 2,000 responses. You'll see in the presentation, but those 3,200 responses, they are weighted then by the demographics and the different voter registrations that you'll see on the next slide. So as we look at the voter registration and past turnouts, the methodology they used was really to take the 3,200 responses and then plug in proportionally to the percentages you see here. So they used 2020 as the presidential election. That's when most voters turn out. And they proportionalized all the responses based on who were projecting to turn out percentage-wise in the 24 election. So that's really how they leveled all the responses that came in. Just some highlights on the demographics that we received. So you'll see that Loveland was about 60%, Berthoud 10, Fort Collins 8, Johnstown 5, and then the unincorporated was about 12%. The age range was interesting. I see that because if you look at 18 to 34 and then the plus 65, in the last several years, it's actually the 18 to 35 is increasing and balancing out. Previously, over the last 5-10 years, there's been more of a difference between the 18 to 35 and 65 plus. And the reason that is important is 18 to 35 typically are more, they come out of the presidential election cycles, so that's a data point that we just track. And then you'll see the party affiliation, unaffiliated Democrat, Republican, who took the survey, and then the race ethnicity there. On the next slide, I'd like to point out that a celebration of the survey is 50% or 53% of the respondents were actually non-TSD parents, so they were just community members. So in a survey like this, there's always a question when the survey goes out, is it just going to be the schools that take the survey, and we're getting just all the parents' voice? In talking to Magellan, and again, they'll talk in a lot more detail about this, but they were excited to see that 53% of them actually were just community members that don't have students in the school. So again, just a testament to the good response we had. You'll see that of the 30% that have kids in the district, about 42% of them are K-5. So there's a lot of elementary parents that took the survey. And then about 70% then of the respondents were neighborhood or public schools. So I'll do the kind of the summary first and then dive into some of the details. So the next slide goes into, this is just a summary of the 3 options and the opinion then of how they polled. In general, the sentiment from Magellan, who sees these numbers a lot, is it's favorable, so that's good. Obviously, you'll see from the 160, there was 57% that would likely vote. The 30% is a no, and you'll see this broken down further. And then the undecided, about 13%. You'll notice that as we go from 160 to 250, the likelihood drops off a little bit, and then 350, it becomes more to that unfavorable point. So the good thing is between the 160 to 250, there seems to be a favorable response from the community. And I will note that of the undecided, the questions brought up of where typically do they land. It typically follows the percentage of how the yeses and nos are coming. So 50% of for example, 160 is yes. That would mean about 57% of that 13% would then vote on the yes side. Okay, so the next 3 slides are just taking each one of those proposed or possible bond initiatives and break it down really into all the different demographics, registered demographics that we saw earlier. This does break down what the 57%, 30%, and 13 means a little more. So it breaks it down into definitely yes, probably yes, definitely no, and then probably no. This is important data if the board elects to go forward with a bond initiative. This will help inform really where is our risk of votes to then, in the hopes then to inform and then come to a yes vote. So you'll see on the right, there's those are all the demographics between gender, age, party affiliation, parent, non-parent, and then Loveland and rest at TSD. So right now it's just lumped as rest at TSD. When you see the data come out Friday, it's actually broken out. Well, it's broken out in 1,000 ways, but you'll see that that's broken out by community. And just something to note as we go through the 3 summaries here, really where the change comes is between the party affiliation and then even the parent, non-parent. So that is the favorability of 160 million at 57%. Typically what Michelle says is when you're close to that 60%, that's good. I mean, nothing's easy here, but that is favorable. When you go to 250 million, the favorability drops a bit, so it goes down to 50%. 36% is the definitely no of 24%, and then probably no of 12%. So then you can see how the data on the right between the party affiliation, parent, non-parent, and residents then kind of change a little bit. The other thing I'll note, this summary here is the informed. So for those of you that took the survey, the first half of the survey was just general, like what would you do? Kind of listed it without giving any information. Then we gave the information as far as, here's the growth needs, here's the maintenance needs. So these are the informed results. So this is after the community or the survey respondents were informed. This is what it boiled down to. So you'll see 250 million then falls at about 50% favorability. And then if we go to the next slide, 350 million, it falls to 41%. When you look at the structure of the 3, the 160, 250, 300, Magellan said it's typical. These are not untypical, and people see the lower number, they're more favorable for that than they are the large. So it wasn't a big surprise that you see a drop off from the low to the high. It's pretty typical when these types of surveys are issued. So you'll see there the definitely no and the reject no 27 and 17, the definitely yes 23 and 18. So again, not the glowing response there, but it's good data to help inform us as we move forward. The next slide here is just a overview of the mill levy or special override. So this question was more general. We didn't give details as far as what the exact tax impact would be. Purposeful because, as Gordon will probably talk about, we didn't have the exact numbers when this went out, so we wanted to make sure that what was presented was accurate. But good news because the favorability was 61% for the mill levy override. You can see the question there was basically if a modest tax increase was issued, would it be favorable or would you vote to approve or reject? You're basically saying that this would be to increase staff salaries. So 61% saying yes. And again, we won't go through all the details of the different demographics because I can take my time and everyone else's, and I wouldn't do that. But it just goes through and it'll help. That's the data that's really pivotal as we move forward because then we can understand, why this is favorable, why this isn't, why in this demographic is not, why is it in this demographic. And then you'll see when all the data comes out later this week to the board, Even when we get into the district perception, we can understand, okay, this is a highlight. For example, CTE was the #1 thing that people said, if you were to vote, what would you vote for? #1 was CTE, #2 was AC. So those are things that are on the top of people's mind that was the top. So anyway, all that information came out. I say that this was just, we just got the survey results. We're digesting. It was a way to get in front of the board and community and say, here's where we're at. And then May 1st, we'll dive more into it. So just a quick note on next steps. So what does this really mean and what do we do with this? So we are working to put our presentation together for our MPC, our Master Plan Committee. So we're going to take all of the comments we've heard from community, from students, from staff, this survey, really compile it into one large presentation document. All the work we've been doing really this last 2-3 months, put it together and then review with the NPC, okay, here's where we're at, and here's some recommended next steps. So as we've talked to all the stakeholders, we've now heard from the stakeholders in a survey, we'll take all that, put it together, review with the NPC in the first part of May, and then go through that process. And then in June, we'll come back to the board and say, okay, here's what this looks like. Here's some more recommendations that we can move forward with. And then the board, when you talk about timeline, would ultimately vote if they decide to in that August timeframe. And then that's when actually would elect or not to on the ballot. But that's kind of the plan moving forward with all this information we have and what we're going to do with it. So from there, I will stop and just see if there's any questions I can help answer.
All right, beginning with Barb, do you have a question?
I don't think so. There's so much here. I just want to dig in it a little bit more.
All right, Alexandra?
No, I don't have a question. I think it's interesting to look at it, and I certainly look forward to looking through it more, and we'll surely have questions on the study session in May. So but thank you for the summary, Todd.
Amy?
Ditto what everybody else said, thank you. But I do want to thank the 3,200 people who took their time to respond to the survey. I mean, that means a lot. So, we've got some good data to work from. So I just want to give a thanks to everybody who took the survey.
Great. Dawn?
Thank you.
Okay. Denise?
Thank you. Can't wait to see the rest.
I just think it'll be interesting to read the full document, especially on the approval ratings and what the other comments are. Because again, I think it's easy to, on a piece of paper where it's not going to impact your checkbook, to say, yeah, sure, I would support it. But so I really can't wait to read those comments.
Yeah, and so that'll come at the end of this week with, Magellan did a 50-page presentation that is this really expanded, and then all just the candidate data out of the survey will be issued.
Right. I don't have any comments either. As Amy mentioned, I think gratitude to the 3,200 people who completed the survey is certainly to be noted, and I also look forward to reading the expanded report. Thank you, Todd, for giving us the summary tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right, item 8.4, the Tech for All Digital Access and Equity Report. And that's Kelly. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, Dr. Schaefer, and board members, Kelly Sane, Chief Technology Officer. I'm here to talk about digital access and equity, some suggestions that we have for Tech for All. The purpose of this conversation is to make sure that we are empowering the TSD community to grow into the future with innovative technology today. Technology is essential for all of our students' success. Just this week alone, we did assessments. SAT was digital. All of our CMS assessments were digital. Our curriculum is digital. So we must make sure that we ensure that our students have the opportunity to use digital tools. In Strive 2025, the Tech for All one-to-one program supports strategic plan by making sure that our students have digital tools that can demonstrate their learning in meaningful ways and using these digital tools of their future. And by having access to our digital tools, Thompson is creating learning conditions that enable students to reach their fullest potential. So what does that mean? Digital access and equity, the proposal that we have is that 5th and 11th grade students will take their devices home this summer. We are going to pilot at Garfield and Lorraine Edmondson for grades 2nd through 4th grade, and our 12th grade students who have successful graduation will have the option to keep their Chromebooks once they graduate. We have learned from several different stakeholders and leaders that some of our families do not have resources at home and do not have a digital device at home. So this will allow them to still continue their learning journey, and it is in alignment with our surrounding districts. So why? Why are we going down this path? We do have summer programming. You've learned about summer scholars. A lot of our students need devices. In order for us to be really diligent with our resources, we don't keep extra devices around just for the summer. The device follows the student. We have seen a lot of pride in our students by having that device follow them. It is their device. They take care of it when they know that they get it from the year, from surrounding year to the next year, etc. This is in alignment with our surrounding districts. And then this means that we could have all students would be able to have access, so we would have digital equity. One of the pieces that we need to really make sure is that we work on the digital divide for our students. So how did we get to this process? A bunch of different surrounding districts and new leaders came into TSD and said, hey, Kelly, why don't we offer the opportunity for our students to take devices home during the summer, and what about an opportunity once they graduate for them to be able to use this device? So we looked at our research, we looked at what our surrounding districts are doing. We looked at Calais, which is the part of CASE for Leaders in Educational Technology, and COSIN, which is our national organization that we are a part of with CASE and Calais. Then we brought back the feedback to TALC and our librarians and our tech facilitators and our building leaders. We asked them, if we go down this path, what do you need from us? And now we're coming about with our community. We are going to create a We Trust You video that is going to be from a bunch of different stakeholders that say, we trust you to take care of this device. It's in alignment with our responsible use agreement and our policy forms that you all have been a part of. And then we're working on the communications that are going to go out to our families. So the last resource shows you, when we visited with different stakeholders, what are some things that you need from us. And so these are the resources that we are putting together in Securely as an option for families to decide on what works for them. Common Sense Media is an option for them to really look at what works for you while you're at home, providing healthy guidelines for them. We have the Smart Talk and tech, family tech planners. We've also created different things, like you see a picture of the clamps. This is an opportunity for us to create an elementary, middle school, and high school level for ways that you can use digital tools, and they're in alignment with the resources that we offer. You can see something like with Sora. Sora is an opportunity. We just heard from Jesse talk about this earlier today. For our students who might not be able to go to a library, they can check out a book remotely, and they can listen to an audiobook, they can read an ebook, and they have access to all of those resources during the summer so that they can continue their learning. They would have access to Lexia or iReady, Khan Academy, any of those resources, so that maybe there isn't as much of a potential summer slide. So those are the different pieces that we are working on, and we'll be providing families as we roll out this process. So how does this connect to equity? We've looked at all of our surrounding districts, and we are being in alignment with them and their opportunities for the devices to follow at home, as well as for an opportunity for them to keep their device upon graduation. Any questions?
All right, starting this time with Alexandra, a question? I think you're muted. She's working on it.
Okay, there we go. It wouldn't let me unmute for some reason, sorry. So I do have a couple of questions, Kelly. As far as I know there's been a lot of work with trying to like rehab and refurbish Chromebooks and things so that we're reducing the replacement cost. And so I'm just curious about how, like, what's the replacement strategy now with this? I don't imagine you expect a kid to like keep the same device from kindergarten through 12th grade and then take it with them when they graduate. But then at the same time, if we're sending a whole bunch of Chromebooks home with kids when they graduate, how are those replaced? So I guess just sort of in general, what's the strategy there?
So in our Tech for All program, we have a 4-year process. So the device works, you get a new device at the 2nd grade, 6th grade, and 9th grade level, and that device is with you for those 4 years. As far as graduation for seniors, we have it in our communications to our seniors and to families. If you already have a digital device at home, please do not take this device with you, because then we could use that for replacement. We could use it for families in need. We could use it to refurbish some additional devices for families who might not be able to have their own device at home. So when we looked at the research of what our surrounding districts have done, we have about half of the percentage of the people who keep their device and some who don't. And so we've put that into the option for families if they choose to. In the responsible use agreement and at least for our seniors, when they're, if they have opted to be able to have this as an option, families have to sign off, parents have to sign off on it. So I don't anticipate that it will impact the repair process that we have. What we have seen is that our students know that if it's their device and I get to have it when I graduate, I treat it very differently than if it was something that I was just borrowing at school.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Barb, question?
Just to comment that it's another piece of the equity so that everybody has everything that they need all the time. So I think it's wonderful.
All right, thank you. Nancy?
I like this concept because I think it's a good way to just put in practice the idea that the device follows the student, the dollars follow the student. And so I think that's a great way to begin doing that. I also, if we were to ever do that special levy for maintenance and so forth, that would be a great way to fund the 4-year cycle replacements by using that money instead of having it come out of the general fund. But it's a good idea. It's a good program.
Thank you.
Amy?
I appreciate that the resources that you listed are in English and in Spanish. So again, just focusing on our equity. And, I do believe, you've said a few times that, when kids are given the device and it's theirs, they do take the ownership. I mean, having 2 middle school students, I was a little wary of that, but they've really embraced it and, it's theirs. And then, if we tell those students, I think you called it the, we trust you agreement, that, I think that students rise to the occasion, when you give them that trust. So I think that's pretty cool. So thank you very much for all the work.
Dawn, before you say anything, I owe you an apology. I'm trying to keep with a particular rotation, and I screwed up. You were supposed to start this particular round of comments, so please forgive me, but we'll hear from you now.
Well, I appreciate that. I didn't know that, so
felt like I had to fess up.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I didn't know. Yes, to everything you said, especially, and I also like that you're teaching. You're really setting a high expectation and walking them through what that looks like in a way that I really think is getting good results, and it's thorough, and that is what we've talked about in a bunch of other places, but you're like really doing it in a way that's widespread, and doing it with kids that are even younger than I think we sometimes do that with. And I love it so much, I almost just swore. With that said, I'm actually concerned that we're not going young enough with this policy. So I appreciate that there's a little pilot, but I'm hoping that maybe we can just not, because I know that, we're using devices in early childhood education, and for all of the great reasons that you've outlined on why this is important for fifth graders, that they don't go away when you're 4, right? The earlier actually that we get access to things, that's when we're making the most neural connections. So if we want someone to be good at something, we do it earlier. So I know you know that. I can see that as you're responding. I have a feeling that you've probably done a lot of discussing of this, and so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that I see that you created something that I think can be used throughout our entire system. And we often err on the side of not trusting youth, and you have proven how to do it, and I love that. So thank you for doing that for us.
I would say that, thank you for the nice comments, but it's our students that are proving this. It has nothing to do with me, and it's our students and our families. And so I'm incredibly thankful also that we have some principals who are willing to pilot this, and I'll bring you back some information about the pilot.
And there you are proving again why it's working. Right, thank you for that.
All right, Denise.
A couple questions. One, will the security, safety, block sites that they have at school continue with them when they're at home all summer?
Yes, so securely is the option. So because we have Chromebooks, it isn't about, you have to be on our Wi-Fi or our filters. It follows the student based upon their information with their Google account. So yes, and we have information on our website. One of the things that we really wanted to do was put it on our website so that you can use the amazing translation services that our website provides us, so that parents can figure out how to use securely the way that they feel is the best, whatever families are doing for them. Because you may have a different experience about what your digital footprint is in your family, and somebody else might have a total other experience, so this allows them to change and alter as they see fit.
Super. And then, do all of our families have access to Wi-Fi, or what are we doing? I mean, you can give them a device, but if they can't connect to anything, or they have to trudge somewhere to get it, it's really not equitable.
So we do work with the Learning Services side to be able to identify families who might need to have access. We have some information on our website, and including with families, about how to sign up for internet access that's a reduced cost through some of our different vendors and partners. The digital divide is still an issue. I'm trying to solve for at least the device part. The internet part takes collaboration with our partners.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly, just a couple of questions. My first question is, and you may have covered this, and if you did, I apologize for asking it again. The seniors who are graduating this year, are they the first group that will be allowed to take the devices with them?
Yes.
All right. And originally, were those devices paid for with COVID dollars, ESSER dollars, et cetera? Were they district dollars or a combination?
So a combination. One of the pieces when we accepted Emergency Connectivity Fund, which is also connected to ESSER dollars, was to solve for the digital divide. So this solves for that digital divide piece that our students might not have access to. And really, when you look at the 4 years of the device, beyond 4 to 5 years. We don't have like this device isn't going to last for 8 more years. So we're really not giving them something that's going to last forever, but at least giving them a leg up for an opportunity once they do graduate.
And we feel that we can afford to send these Chromebooks home with the seniors and be able to cover the cost of continuing to do this.
So our rollout plan is 4 years. So even at the end of the senior piece, we would have used these for parts if we needed them or for loaners. So at this point, it's really not anything that we're paying additional pieces for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry for not making that clear. That was my fault.
You probably did make it clear, and I just didn't catch it. So, board, any other questions for Kelly? Thank you for giving us yet another very complete presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, we'll move then to item 8.5, which is the negotiations update. Dr. Sievers is at the podium. Andy Chrisman is approaching, so go ahead and take off.
Mr. Vice President, School Board, Dr. Schaefer, Bill Sievers, Chief Human Resources Officer, accompanied by Andy Chrisman. So before we start the presentation, I just want to do some shout outs because I think it's pretty important. So a shout out for Andy, first of all. This is the 10th year being the president and working hand in hand with him on issues and negotiations. He truly has a focus on student achievement and really a focus on helping teachers and programs and just the community. And I think that's pretty honorable because this is his last year, so I'm going to try to weave that in as much as I can. Just the honor of the work that he did. The second shout out goes to Gordon Jones. Depth and breadth is the two words I think of the most. He came in with 3 pages of just wonderful knowledge. I'd say wonderful knowledge about the budget. You know, just the way he presents to our team. You know, I say our team because it's teachers and administration coming together, and it's truly a team. And just what he brings in and the way he can take the information and put it in layman's terms for people to understand is tremendous. So out of the 9 pages of the notes, 3 pages is about Gordon's presentation. So we gave him 20 minutes and he took 45 minutes, which is great because he went really in depth in it. The third shout out I want to do is for Mark Schaefer, our superintendent, of course. With his busy schedule, he was able to be at negotiations the majority of the day. So being there and talking about the issues and just seeing the work that we're doing has been tremendous support by our superintendent. And Stu Boyd had an opportunity to be there in the afternoon, and him just being there. We typically do a checkout at the end, and Stu had an opportunity to check out, and he kind of talked about the feeling of trust. He kind of reiterated some of the things that were said, but just the trust that we have and just the deep conversations. The reason why I say that is because I'm staying 30,000 feet for what we did and what we accomplished in one day. We went through compensation, we went through the two related issues but critical questions, and we went through the majority of interest base with it. The one thing I want to point out with the notes, because there are a lot of notes, when you talk about the story and the interest, everybody on the teams have an opportunity to say whatever they need to say. Like, we have norms. The reason why I say that, every comment that's being said, like, we don't fact check everything that's said because there's a level of trust of what's being said because we bargain with good faith, right? So anybody that says something, it's captured in the notes, and Karen Caruso, of course, she's probably listening, of course, 5th shout out, Karen. And just the notes that she takes is truly amazing. But she captures that, and we capture that in our notes. So just know, like, every bullet point in there is somebody's comment. And we don't debate the comment, like, hey, I disagree with what you just said. That's not what interest base is about. So I just want to point that out, especially for a board member being new and seeing the notes. Like, there's a lot of notes, but that's individual work that goes on with that. So tonight's presentation, Stride 2025, investigate areas in compensation and benefits so TSD is competitive, and I highlight that again for TSD to be competitive. So there's a whole lot of notes there, and we're just reviewing from Thursday, April 11th. Like I said, just the amount of notes that Karen Caruso does and gets that information out to you, like the 9 pages, she takes a lot of work with that. So the negotiated items, we talked about 3 things: compensation, the PLC, how has the addition of elementary PLC language helped support student achievement and or professional collaboration and or plan time. And then the other item we have is site-based shared decision making. plans, how do we support collaborative decision-making? So those are the 3 areas. This is the second year of a 2-year agreement. So there's limited related items that we talk about. I'll just do this real quick. So the interest-based model, like you can see where we're at, the story, interest, options, criteria, solution, agreement, implementation. And we talked about story, interest, and option and criteria for the 3.
And so the process of Andy Chrisman again, Mr. Vice President, members of the board, Dr. Schaefer online. Process of the day, we did some review of our community agreements and our MOU protocols and approved them for the year. As Dr. Sievers mentioned, we talked to Gordon Jones for 35 minutes. And then we went through story, interest, options, criteria for 3 different questions, which is highly unusual for us. We are fortunate that for our related items, we are really kind of in a check adjust mode rather than a blow it up and start over mode. So that, it kind of moved that along a little bit. And so you can see in the notes, we talked a lot about all 3 of those. We meet again on April 25th in the administration building from 8 to 4. We hope at that point we'll take all of our options and basically put some of them together, pull some of them apart, put together something that we can support in front of you in May.
So there's just a copy of the negotiating team, like I presented before. We have 2 more meetings coming up. Andy just talked about April 25th, and then May 7th would be our last one. So at this time, Andy will take any questions. And that joke never gets old. Like, I love saying it because.
All right. Barb, anything you'd like to ask or comment to me? All right. Alexandra?
No, thank you.
Denise?
No, thank you.
Amy? Or pardon me, Nancy?
I'm fine.
Now Amy.
Thanks.
Hope he's all written down.
Just thank you.
Dawn.
It's really, I know it's a lot of work and everybody really dedicates a lot of time to this, and yet I think it shows in how, what we end up with in the end, that we did take all this time and work on it collaboratively, so thank you for that.
I will say that one of the things, I guess I'll stand a little closer to the mic. One of the things I really appreciate is that over the course of the year, we keep talking. So by the time we get to a place where something's a critical question, it really has risen to the top of the things we want to talk about and want to talk a little bit more about. It's not everyone's bringing all their stuff and kind of dumping it on the table. We really had a good conversation about what do we want to invest, because time is precious. In negotiations, 3 full days even in this off year, and then 7 full days sometimes, or more in a full year. And you're going to invest that kind of time and resources, you want to make sure you're talking about the things that matter. And I think we do a nice job as a 2+2 team and as our own separate negotiating teams, really saying, okay, we're going to invest this time. What do we want to do? What do we want to do right? So.
Plus, we had 7 budget study teams, which the team's a part of it, and Gordon's kind of in the center because he answers all the questions for us. But that's 7 meetings, after school hours, coming together, teachers coming together, have discussions around that. So there's a lot of work and effort that goes into once we get to the table for discussion. Thank you.
One thing before I let you go, you were issuing accolades to a variety of people, and having had the opportunity to work with Karen Caruso when she was at Turner, and now observing her in her role in HR, seeing the volume of notes she produces, the attitude that she projects during negotiations, we need to appreciate her very much because she does a great job and relates well. My sense is, having sat in on some of the negotiations, she relates very well to the administration team, to the TEA team, and yeah, so I just wanted to comment on that.
I definitely appreciate her every day.
Yeah. All right.
It is a joy working with her.
All right, thank you. All right, in terms of written reports, attached are the monthly financial report and the family pie report. Board have any requests for information? Then let me conclude before banging the gavel. If you haven't given me yet the legislative platform sheets, both the single page and the sheets that summarize the legislative platforms for the 3 local districts, we're going to begin working on that Monday morning. So if you could either drop that off to Laura Lee before that time or email her something if you're preparing it digitally, I would appreciate that. So with that, and hearing nothing else,